Welcome back to 3CR Tuesday Breakfast. So earlier this month, The Guardian reported that a health emergency has been declared by Maribyrnong Council for residents of Melbourne's western suburbs, claiming rates of illness in the municipality due to pollution, which considerably exceeds the Australian average. Maribyrnong Truck Action Group is a community lobby advocating for a reduction in the number of trucks on residential streets in Melbourne's inner west to improve the community's well-being. The group's treasurer and advocate, Lisel is joining us on the show this morning to talk about the group's 10-year campaign to reduce pollution in the west. Welcome to the show, Lisel.
Thank you.
So can you start by telling our listeners a little bit about the group? How did it come about and how long have you been a part of it?
Well, sadly, it is actually a lot more than 10 years. The group formed in about 2005. I joined about 3 years later when I moved to the inner west and have been campaigning ever since to do something about the trucks that are on residential streets in the city of Maribyrnong. We're a volunteer group made up of residents that are really concerned about their health.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been reported that, adolescent asthma rates are 50% higher than the state average and hospital admission rates are 70% higher than the Australian average for those aged between 3 and 19. This is all, quite concerning. Can you tell us a bit about the campaigning that the group has done so far and what the response has been?
Yeah, look, the health statistics are really terrifying. We've got above average rates of lung cancer, premature mortality for respiratory system disease, heart disease and so on. We're actually a younger than average population. We have average socioeconomic status, average smoking rates, average obesity levels, all those things that people say impact on health, and yet our health statistics are actually a lot more representative of an elderly, unwell population than the young population that we are, which is really terrifying. So, we've been banging on about this health issue since 2006 when we had a health forum, brought together experts to talk about these issues, and yet it's taken decades for that message to really get through. The other thing that we've done is lots of writing letters, lots of meetings, lots of petitions, and perhaps what we're most well known for is actually protest actions. So we get out on the streets, we lie on the streets when we're concerned about the impact of trucks on our sleep patterns, and we show that we cannot sleep with these trucks rumbling past us. We block traffic to really bring attention to the issue, and it's the thing that has actually, over those years, had the local council, the state government and the federal government listen to what we're saying.
At 3CR, we're big fans of community action, and especially action that, brings people out into the street. You ran a successful campaign for a truck curfew in areas of Footscray and Yarraville, which, it has happened. Has this curfew made a difference? And can you tell us a bit about the campaign?
Look, it certainly has helped. We have, I think the statistics are 22,000 trucks a day running within metres of houses, schools and childcare centres. These are trucks that are primarily accessing the Port of Melbourne. So they're coming from industrial areas through residential areas to the Port of Melbourne. The couple of the streets that they use have schools on them. So one of the things that we campaigned for was during those hours when kids are coming to and from school, that the trucks not use those roads, and that at very minimum that truck traffic happening outside of those areas to at least make those streets slightly safer for the children who are coming, families that are coming to and from school. Unfortunately, they're still thundering past those schools during the school day and spewing out the diesel pollution and having the impact on the air on those students while they are at school, which is quite disturbing.
Absolutely. And, as you just mentioned, in addition to air pollution and, the health risks we've discussed, there are also concerns of noise pollution and road safety for residents and cyclists and children.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, these are things that are very concerning for our community, and it is the reason why people will come to a protest and wave signs and stand up and say this is actually not good enough. We need our health protected. We're often told, well, if you don't like it, you can move. But what does that mean for the new family that moves into my house? They have to suffer the problem too. This isn't a solution. That it isn't a problem that can be solved by people moving. That just doesn't work for an entire community. And we have a very, very strong evidence base to show that this is a real problem. And I think that's one of the other things that has been very effective in our campaign is that we are well respected by the state government as a lobby group, for example, that knows what it is talking about, and that's been really helpful too. And I think it's one of the other reasons why the community will come out and wave signs and stand on street corners and stand in front of trucks on roads. That's a scary thing for people to do, but because we are well researched, well evidence-based, they know that they are on the right side of the story. And I should clarify too, when we do these protests, we do them with the full cooperation of the police. We don't just walk out the middle of a street in front of a great big truck. We make sure that we do everything above the board. And again, that's one of the reasons why we are so supported by our community.
Definitely. And, you touched on the research and evidence that you do have backing your arguments. Last year in August, the Grattan Institute released a report warning that pollutions from trucks kill more than 400 Australians a year and contribute to a variety of diseases. And they specifically talked about the city of Maribyrnong. One of their recommendations is that they're calling for it to be a low emission zone. Can you tell us a bit more about this?
Yeah, so we've got in Australia one of the oldest truck fleets in the world, really. So these are trucks that don't have the sort of pollution controls that more modern trucks have. And there are cities in the world that have, in fact, hundreds of cities in the world that have low emission zones, which essentially are areas where it's not possible or not permissible for these old trucks to go into those areas. There's a clean truck program, for example, at the Port of Long Beach in Los Angeles, and that low emission zone has reduced air pollution by 90% in a matter of years. So it can be done. It absolutely can be done, and yet those low emissions, the idea of a low emission zone, for example, which would ban trucks that were built before 2003, it is seen as radical in Melbourne, and yet we think that would be a really positive step to protect this area. New trucks are not going to solve the safety issue, but it certainly would go a long way to dealing with the problem of diesel emissions.
Certainly. And, you did mention this has been ongoing since 2005, the fight to reduce the pollution levels in the West. Why do you think it's taken this long?
I guess it's been very difficult when there isn't an obvious other route. The fastest route between the growing container yards in the western areas of Melbourne and the port is through our municipality. And the option of going over the Westgate Bridge and over the Balti Bridge, that has tolls. And so that has an impact on the bottom line of the operators that are running those routes. The container trucks run on pretty small margins, and so they argue that they can't afford to use the Balti Bridge, which has a toll. So that's been very difficult for us to fight that fight, and it sadly has taken this long for the health message to really make its mark. When the Westgate Tunnel, for example, was being proposed, we lobbied very hard for the stacks that will let the emissions from the tunnel out for that to be filtered, and that isn't happening. It's something that we are continuing to lobby for. Those stacks are being constructed so that filtration could be retrofitted, it could be added later on. Our argument is do it now. This project is costing billions of dollars. Do it now. It's not going to be acceptable to push those trucks into that tunnel and then have all the diesel emissions come out of stack and fall down on our community again. So, again, this is one of the real challenges that we've had for all of those years. It's frustrating. It is frustrating, but we continue on.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds so frustrating, and I wonder, historically, Melbourne's West and Footscray in particular has had, a bit of a reputation and has been home to lots of waves of migration and low socioeconomic, historically, which is changing now because of the development happening in the West. But you do have to wonder if that plays a part in how long this has taken.
Yeah, look, yes. We often will say, I wonder if all of these trucks were thundering past houses in Brighton, how
exactly
something would happen. So we do feel forgotten at times. Our local state member at the moment is certainly advocating very hard on our behalf, but they are obviously, it's a big challenge. And what we're being told is, but the Westgate Tunnel, that will solve all your problems. And I think that's what is very important about this declaration of the health emergency. It's actually saying we can't wait. Saying, the tunnel's coming, and remember this is a tunnel with stacks that aren't filtered, but to say the tunnel's coming in a few years, everything will be all right then. No, it's a health emergency. Something needs to happen now. What about a low emission zone? Why can't we go down that path? We need to do something about these trucks, and particularly these old clappers that, are just spewing out the sort of diesel emissions that really are totally unacceptable.
Absolutely. I mean, as a resident of the West, and, I really love living in the West, I'm just so grateful that, this group exists and is committed to this campaign. What's next for, is it MTAG?
MTAG.
Yeah,
right.
What's next for MTAG?
Yeah, look, we continue. We will continue on. We feel very heartened, and we did for a while. Our campaign felt quite depressing. We were talking often about how terrible it was, and a turning point for us was when we realised, no, this is a good news story in that this is an awesome place to live. There is just this one problem, and we need to solve this one problem, and then we can all live happily in this amazing inner West community. So we'll continue to push. We certainly feel like we've turned the corner. There's been a bit of a paradigm shift in terms of the recognition of this health problem, and we're certainly going to jump on this announcement of the health emergency to start pushing hard again and say, okay, it's a health emergency. What are you doing? What are you doing now? What are you doing now? Because saying, we'll do so-and-so in the future, we'll make land use changes, we'll do this, we'll do that, whatever, not good enough. It's an emergency. What are you doing now?
Absolutely. How can listeners support this campaign?
But we're very happy to have people join the Maribyrnong Truck Action Group. You'll certainly find us on the internet. Very easy to find our website. Very, very great website there with lots of information. You can join our group. The more the merrier. We'll then keep you up to date on what we're doing. And there's also options there. If you see smoky trucks, for example, there's options for how you can report that and curfew breakers and so on. So very much encourage people to get on that website and have a look at. There's also a little history page. You can go right back through all of our actions over the years and see what we've been busy doing. But yeah, we're not giving up. We are committed to make this place the amazing community and fabulous place that we all deserve. We all deserve somewhere healthy and safe to live. We all deserve clean air.
Absolutely, Lisel. That's unfortunately all we have time for this morning, but thank you so much for joining us and talking to us about this issue.
No problem. Thank you very much.
So that was Lisel Thomas, campaigner and treasurer for the Maribyrnong Truck Action Group, talking to us about their campaigns to reduce pollution in Melbourne's West.